Good morning, Exploring Consciousness podcast listeners. Today, my guest is a good friend of mine, very special guest, Candice M. Sanderson. Welcome to the podcast, Candice.
Thank you, Donna. It is absolutely great to be here. I'm so excited.
Yeah, we've been trying to schedule this for some time, so I'm really excited about this. So we're going to tell our listeners your two books are The Reluctant Messenger, Tales from Beyond Belief, and then The Reluctant Messenger Returns, her second book, and that's her Encounter with Angels. So when I was in an online group with Candice, we started talking, and Candice sent me some information about her book, and I got goosebumps. I mean, I was just literally, I couldn't get her book fast enough. And then when I got her book, poor Candice, I was texting her like every 10 seconds. Oh, on page 7. Oh, on page 8. Oh my God, page 19. Or I put it in Facebook. I can't remember. Let's go ahead and start at the beginning. So my listeners will have a little bit of knowledge from your book about where you came from, but we want to hear it from you. So
Okay.
you had told us in your book that you had 6 decades of comfortable living. Can you recap that for us?
Oh, had a good life. It was, wonderful. 6 decades of doing nothing but whatever I wanted, which is really not true. I was working hard. I was a psychologist. I had losses I had to deal with, but, life goes on and I'm doing fine. I'm in my normal life. And all of a sudden, my life changed. I'm on my way to work one morning before sunrise. There's never like any traffic on the road this time of day. My car, I felt like it was on automatic pilot. I'm halfway paying attention to my driving, thank goodness, but the other half, I'm running through the schedule. I had back-to-back meetings. Will I have lunch? All of a sudden this thought just dropped out of the blue into my awareness. Now, first of all, it was more than a thought. It was more like a couple of paragraphs. And I immediately knew this was not something that was from me. It was more like a thought for me. Okay, this was August 28th, 2013. And the message was that, it was about a flower. The message said that a flower is at its peak when it's open. And then they said a flower is like a flower. So I saw the word in my mind's eye, flower, and it was hyphenated. A flower is a flower. And just like a human, when you let the energy flow, you're open to growth and potential. It, went ahead. I heard the words that said, the plant draws energy from Mother Earth. It reaches, it reaches up to Father Sky. And when there's this perfect connection with Source, it opens to potential. And then the message said, let us all be flowers of energy. And I'm thinking, what is this? I knew it didn't come from me. The words, the vocabulary, the phrasing, not mine. I didn't use terms like source, Father Sky back then. I do now. And I certainly didn't refer to humans, to people as humans. I knew the message didn't come from me, but what was it? Well, Donna, you'll appreciate this with your background. My first thought as a psychologist was to look at the pathology. What's wrong? What's wrong with me? What's the problem? I'm psychotic. What's going on here?
You probably the DSM-4 checklist.
Yeah, you go through the whole list and it's like, no. And, I took a deep breath and I realized that wasn't true. I'm not psychotic, but, I didn't know what had happened. I couldn't explain it. So as a psychologist, I'm joking here, I did what many of us do. It's like, forget about it. I just dismissed it. I thought, this must be one of those mystical experiences I've read about. But I had more important things to do. I had to get to work like an hour early. So I arrive at my work. I pull into the empty parking lot. I grab my briefcase, my purse, and I have my cup of coffee. I've got the keys to the side entrance to the building in my hand, and I'm walking toward the door. And then all of a sudden, I'm distracted. Something stopped me dead in my tracks. I mean, I can put myself back there right now. I remember I just like turned in slow motion to see what had diverted my attention. And I saw it. It was right there. A tree. A tree. I was looking at a tree that I had passed 100 times before, but it was different today. This was a royal poinciana tree. And for those listeners who aren't familiar with that, I think it's a subtropical tree, but it's got this beautiful gnarly trunk and these wide spreading branches. And the flowers on it, the blooms, look like orchids. So it was just filled with red, orange, beautiful flowers. And it created this beautiful canopy. The leaves of a royal poinciana look like ferns. Well, by this time, the sun was starting to come up, and beams of light just filtered through that canopy. And I just stared at it. I mean, I'm sure my mouth was wide open. And I thought, here I am alone with a tree. But then I had the oddest and inspiring thought. I wasn't alone. This, and I'm going to get teary-eyed because this is what happens when I connect. This was not just a living tree. It was a sentient being. It was as much alive as I was. I just stood there and I was mesmerized by it. The light from above, there were these shadows of light and dark on the ground. I am just taken in by this tree. And then my attention was drawn to this tiny bud that had not opened. And if I'd had any doubts about the message I had just received, they were gone, because my thoughts returned to some of the last words I had heard. Let us all be flowers of energy. I knew on some deep, undiscovered level that I had been guided to this tree. I was the bud. It represented me, potential. I was the flower of energy, just waiting to bloom. A few moments later, I went in the building, but I didn't know what had happened. I walked in that building a new person. I had not known, how the message with the tree and hearing the message about the flower would change me. I had not known that I had just taken my first steps into the unseen world of spirit.
So this,
I would never be the same.
You're never going to, and you haven't been the same. And you said
No.
those 10 minutes, when you think about the drive and in that you're getting a message, now you step outside and you have this mystical experience with, like time stops around you,
Absolutely.
And people don't understand that unless you've had a mystical experience. Time actually stops.
It does.
And things begin to come into your awareness. But to think that you were that they're letting you know that makes me cry. I mean, really.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one
crying through this interview.